So, welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Bariatric Nutrition Coach Podcast. And I'm super excited to have a past client on with me, the lovely Nicole. Nicole and I worked together through Nicole went through 2 boot camps. She had a break in between, but I'm really excited for Nicole to share her journey, share her pearls of wisdom. So, welcome, Nicole.
Hi, Jane. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you. Like you said, I had bariatric surgery. I had a gastric sleeve in October of 2022. So I'm about a little over a year from that. And I think I reached out to you while I was waking up from anesthesia and getting surgery. I feel like I went to sleep thinking about it, like, this is who I'm going to contact immediately after. And that's exactly what I did. So mom of 2. I live in the US in Florida and just adapting to life after a big change.
Fantastic. And that's a lovely memory of you contacting me, like messaging back and forth. And I always say to people, where are you in your bariatric journey? And you're like, just had it, literally. So no, that was really fantastic. So we know each other quite well, but in this podcast, I want to go back to the beginning with you because I know people get so much value out of hearing other people's stories. People listen to my podcast at all different stages of their journey. Some people listen before they've had their surgery and every stage after. But I'd love to come back to your reasons why you decided to have bariatric surgery in the first place.
So I have never been someone who was super thin, but I was very fit. I served in the military for several years. And obviously, being in the military, I had to have a certain level of fitness. But as I got a little bit older, I moved away from home and I met my husband. And just over the years, progressively, I gained more and more weight. Bariatric surgery was something that I wouldn't want to say had like a negative stigma, but I definitely felt like it was a last resort situation for me. I always felt like I want to do things naturally. I can do it naturally. I've dieted before and have lost the weight, but obviously it was never something that was successful, right? You would lose the weight, but it would come back eventually because they were really bad diets or things that you couldn't maintain, sustain long term. And it just got to the point where I remember it was my son's 6th birthday and we had a gathering for him at the house. And at this point, I hated taking pictures. I hated being in any pictures. I didn't want to be in pictures with my kids. And I remember looking back and it's like I was in no pictures with them ever. It was just pictures of my husband or when friends or family would come visit. And I hated that, obviously. And I remember seeing the pictures and I'm like, I don't even recognize who this person is anymore. Like, I don't recognize myself. And I think probably a week or 2 after that, I reached out to the weight loss center that I ended up having my surgery at just to find out what the next steps were.
Okay.
I was at that point, I was on blood pressure medication. I mean, I was in poor health. I was really overweight and it was just, I needed help. And I realized like, okay, this is something that I need to do, or I don't know how many more birthdays I'll make it to. And that's really when I started kind of looking into everything and starting the process for surgery.
It does make me sad when people feeling, or you shared about that kind of negative kind of last, and I think that's a really common thing people struggle with. And feeling like many people shared with me that they feel like to have bariatric surgery feels like they've failed. They haven't been able to do it on their own. And that just shows me that we've still got a very poor understanding of the disease of obesity because there are so many factors that play into it. And it is your body before surgery didn't care what weight you got to. Once you got to that weight, its job was to keep you there because that means survival. So whenever you lose weight, your body is going to fight to go back to that weight. And then you feel like you've failed because you haven't been able to stay on a diet. So thank you for sharing that because that's really common, Nicole. People feel or go into, not many people do go into bariatric surgery really positive and excited and all of that, but deep down can be really feeling that something that they have to do it and other people haven't. And it just shows me that we still don't have a really great understanding of obesity. I love when you shared you've got young children and when you said your health wasn't where you want it to be and you want to be around
Mhm.
longer. And with mums, having children can be such a wonderful motivator and the key why to have surgery and keep you going on the hard days after. So thank you for sharing that. You're over 12 months from surgery now. Looking back from this point, what have been the hardest adjustments for you after your surgery? What's been kind of easier than you thought, and maybe what's been harder than you thought when it comes to lifestyle changes and all the things that you've gone through over the last 12 months plus?
I think really it's such a mental change. I mean, I think you go through so many physical changes, and it's so rewarding to see the physical changes, right? To see the weight loss and to see that you're able to fit into clothes that you didn't fit before and that you're able to move in ways that you weren't able to before. But I think the biggest thing is just the mental changes that you go through. I mean, there is so much pressure to make sure that it's successful because it is a big procedure. It's a life-changing procedure. And I feel like you have to be in the right mindset for it. And I think fully commit to, okay, these are changes that I have to make for the rest of my life in order to obtain that goal. But I think it's the easiest part has been to maybe make the changes because I know why I'm making them. But I also had you to kind of help me and guide me through a lot of those things. And I remember waking up and I was thinking about this the other day, but getting that little cup that you get like to take medicine, and they're like, okay, you're gonna try and take water. I'm like, I can't do this by myself. I'm like, I need somebody to help me. Like that's kind of when I realized, like, what the heck get myself into? Really, I think it gets easier, right? When I had you to help me kind of. I think even now, and even the second time, probably the hardest part was remembering like the basics, like chewing your food, not chugging your water. And those are little things that you're just not used to doing consistently. And even now, sometimes I'm like, I'll go for a run and I'll want to come back and I just want to chug my water bottle and be like, oh no, I still need to take the sips and stuff. So I think it's kind of reminding yourself to do a lot of the basics. But also, I do feel like the changes are so rewarding that they really just kind of eclipse everything else. All the hard part, I feel like it is hard. It is a change. It's a change for your whole family because they're going through those changes with you. I remember my almost 8-year-old now, he's like, when are you going to be done with the surgery? Are you going to continue to lose weight? Like he's like, and they notice like those things, or it's like, are you only going to eat? They ask you about your portion sizes and well, why are you only eating this much? And I can eat this much. And should I be eating this size? So it's also when you have a family, bring your family along the journey with you and helping them get used to those changes too.
I often say to my clients, talk to your children about how much you're eating and chewing well and eating slowly and listening to your body, because when you're talking to them about the habits, you're also talking to yourself. And
Yes.
that is wonderful. From day one, Nicole, you were very focused and very motivated to take coaching. And what I was thinking when you were, sharing about the basics are the challenging. They're not hard to understand. Sip slowly, chew slowly. Much more challenging to do. And your
Yeah.
tummy, and there's so many benefits to it, and your tummy likes it, and you pick up when you're satisfied, you're not going to overeat. So it really is like I talk a lot about the foundations and the eating habits. And I think when we had your first boot camp and then you had a bit of a time flying on your own, and I can't
Mhm.
remember how long that was before you came back. Can you remember how long?
I think we worked for the first 4 months post surgery, and then it was right before the year mark. I think we started working again right before the year mark. Mhm.
So you finished, yeah, you had a good amount of time in between. When you came back, I remember because I was re-looking at, notes before jumping on and talking to you. We came back to the basics, and it is coming back. It's really like a practice going forward, and that's why we want to have things written down and things in our environment that remind us to eat slower and sleep slower. So the life after bariatric surgery is, for different people, have a different journey, but it is challenging. It is not easy. Behavior change is hard. You've been
Yeah.
eating a certain way for so long, drinking a certain way, thinking about food and your weight and your body a certain way. And a lot of people would have heard me say this a lot, but a lot of change happens in that first year, a year and a half. And the things that we were working on and talking about in that second boot camp, some of them were the same as the first, but then we moved on to other things, didn't we? We talked about stress eating and cravings, all of those things. And I know you've shared a bit, but I'd love you to share, how has coaching helped you on your journey? And this is for someone listening that maybe doesn't have good support from their bariatric centre. Many centres give great support, but often, well, not often, well, actually it is often. I speak to people all the time that have been released from their centre, sent home with after they've sipped enough from their little cup with a booklet. Off you go. We'll see you in 3 months. How's coaching helped you at the different stages after your journey?
So I think I really liked my bariatric center. I think the thing though is that when they talk to you, it's very, are you meeting your protein goals? Are you meeting your water intake? And you obviously are like, yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And it's almost like a one size fits all type of mentality. Like, this is what everyone has to do to get there. And I think what really helped me with you was to kind of go through the motions of everything that was happening in my life and explain to you, okay, this is my situation. Or I remember, I think I changed jobs while we were working together. So it was changing my lifestyle again, right? From, even though we were going through the process, but it's like, well, my schedule has changed. And what do? I thrive a lot on routine. And I think that's one of the things that has helped me to create kind of a routine for myself. And you help me do that, kind of the schedule, making sure I'm having my meals. I plan a time to have my snacks. And those are kind of things that I still thrive on now. And that helped me get through those times where I am very stressed out and life gets in the way. I still try and go back to that advice. Like when we talked about like, hey, make sure you're on a routine. Or I really like that you made it, I think, a complicated time. You made it simple in terms of when you're so stressed and so overwhelmed because you're going through so many changes. It's easy just to have someone to be like, hey, just keep it simple. You don't have to do elaborate meals. You don't have to do elaborate snacks. It's just keep it simple. Make sure that you're following kind of the steps. And I feel like that truly helped me and it still helps me now. Like I listen to your podcast now, or I listen to you on Instagram, just those reminders that really kind of help you just get centered again when you feel like it's also overwhelming. Because even after a year out, it's at first you can barely eat, right? You're eating the tiny little portions. And as time goes on, you can eat more. And I think it gets harder to listen to those cues, even though you want to almost kind of push the limit, like, but I'm kind of on my goal weight. I want to push the limit a little bit more. And then it's kind of just reminding like, well, what would Jane do? What would she tell me to do if that's the case? So really just for me, it's given me kind of like a home base to remember, okay, this is where I started. This was your advice, and just how can I implement it in the different stages that I'm at is pretty much how I've used your tools.
Beautiful. And what you described there was really common early days after surgery. It's really, I see it like everything's thrown up in the air, kind of like a pack of cards, your whole life, food, fluid, how you feel, all of that. And it can be very overwhelming on knowing how to put everything in place and feeling confident that you're doing what you need to do, not only to get the most out of your weight loss surgery, but also to feel good and look after your health. Because I do go on and on about eating regularly and working on how to build up to your protein goal, because if you listen to just your body cues right in the early stage and only eat when you're hungry, you're not going to be able to eat enough and get enough fluid. And I've seen it so many times, people start feeling really crummy because they don't get enough in. So, and it is very personalised, Nicole. That's what my boot camp's about, because it is a personalised journey. Even that you might have surgery on the same day as someone same weight as you, same age, 2 kids at home, or whatever, and your journey is going to be different to theirs. What you find challenging is going to be different to that next person, and everyone is an individual. So that's where the bariatric centres are very much geared up for getting people healed and going. And in it, yes, it definitely can feel like a one-size-fits-all, a bit of a cookie-cutter approach. And the way we really build habits in and get things to stick is when things work for you, are in the way that suits you. foods that you enjoy. So yeah, a personalized approach, but also what's normal and what's not. And this is for
Mhm.
those early to medium days. Some symptoms and things people are talking about, yep, I know that's normal. Others are, no, that's actually not normal. Don't put up with it. People sometimes put up, you need to go and get some support. So it's really having that support and helping move or not even go into the overwhelm, because it is. There's so much. And what does human nature say? Human nature, you want to do your best. You've put so much into having your surgery, physically, financially, and emotionally. Everyone wants to do their best, so they try and do 20 things at once. And it can be really such a big change. So thank you so much for sharing that. And so, big picture, how has life changed for you? What does life look like now that maybe was different before your surgery?
I think I'm just much more present, like in my life in general. I feel like my main goal, honestly, was to just feel like myself again and
Mm.
be able to. I do go on runs now. I work out because it helps me just with stress relief. But it's I can run 4 miles now versus being able to just run a couple feet or walk a couple feet and feel winded. Just being able to be a mom and be present for my kids. I have 2 boys that are super active, and I think about it now, and it's going to amusement parks where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to ride this ride with my kid. And I felt like at the end of the day, just being willing to invest in myself, knowing that in order to take care of my family, I needed to take care of myself first. And I feel like I try and put that. I think as a mom, sometimes we guilt ourselves a lot into, oh, I worked all day. I have to get home and I have to
Mm.
make dinner. I have to make sure the house is clean. I have to make sure laundry is done. But at the end of the day, I feel like I always try, and I still struggle with that sometimes, right? Like, especially on like really long days of work or something. But I'm like, if I don't take care of myself, then I'm just going to end up in the same spot that I was in a couple of years ago. And it's not somewhere I ever want to go back to. I want to be there for my kids. Obviously, now I'm on zero medication. I don't have high blood pressure. I'm not in a pre-diabetic stage anymore. I don't have blood sugar levels that are elevated. I don't have the aches and pains that I had before. So overall, physically, I feel 1,000 times better. But I think emotionally too. I think when you physically feel poor, like you're in
Mm.
poor health, I think it affects every other aspect of your life. So I think just being able to wake up and put on the clothes that you want to put on, being able to go work out if you want to, play with your kids, ride
Mm.
around with them on a bike, teach them how to ride a bike, right?
Mm.
Those are all things that before I didn't have the energy levels to do. And I
Mm.
think professionally too, it's helped me. I feel a lot more confident in terms of what I need to do at work every day to be successful, and just in relationships as a whole. I think you stop being kind of an observer of your life and actively participate in it now. You want to be in the pictures. I lost my dad about 6 months ago, and I think I told you about that. I think we were working together at that point too. And I look back, I have no pictures with my dad, very, very few pictures. And I think back, I'm like, that's because I didn't feel like I wanted to be in pictures. I didn't want to document that stage of my life. I feel like it's truly just allowed me to take the reins back
Mm.
on my life, on what I want to do, and try and focus on bigger goals now, right?
That's wonderful. And you get up early and do your run, and I'm just linking this to that activity, and that's hard. So some mornings you are not going to be feeling like doing that. I'm just kidding. I didn't even have to, because that's just human nature. But how do you keep in touch with your why? What gets you out of bed on those mornings? Do you have any kind of key thoughts or key things you tell yourself that get you out of bed? Or is that commitment is not only to your family, but you've really committed to yourself?
I think just that commitment to myself. I'm not motivated every day. I definitely am not. I get up really early because that's just the best time for me to be able to go. But I think it's a discipline, right? It goes back to building those habits and making sure that you're consistent and that you show up for yourself. And it's hard. Some days it's really hard
Yeah.
and it's you don't want to do it. But I think also a lot of times, especially like on social media, you're so overwhelmed with all the different information coming at you and the different just information that's out there. So I know I purposely I went through and unfollowed a lot of people that I felt like does it serve a purpose in my life right now? No, it doesn't. So, and you find the motivating people. You find people like you who give good information and good advice and who put up some of the motivational and inspirational things because you feed off of that. And I feel like it changes your mindset a lot. So a lot of times, yes, I feel like hitting the snooze button, but then I do the internal monologue where I'm like, get up, you can do it. You're going to feel so much better afterwards. It's just the getting up and getting to the gym or getting up and going outside. That's difficult. But once you're doing it, you're doing it. So yeah, I feel like just talking to yourself positively sometimes really just makes it small, but it makes such a huge difference.
That's definitely a challenge, I think, for a lot of people and women, talking to themselves positive. And yes, that's a wonderful point. But you brought up a really great distinction, the distinction between motivation and discipline. And that is a really wonderful, I just wanted to touch on it because are you going to feel motivated every day? No. We're just not going to, no matter how much we want a goal, that's just human nature. And so many people say to me, I need to get my motivation back. And it's really not about motivation. For me, it's around being really clear as you are about your why. All really clearly you can articulate all the benefits you've got and also the reason why you want to stay where you are when your children and your life and your work and confidence and being in photos with your family and totally not watching your life but being in it. So it's about really being in touch with that and then establishing the habits and working on that level of discipline and committing to yourself. Often we find it easier to commit to other people than ourselves. And I think for women, that's a really big thing to commit, that you don't have to put yourself first as a mum, but you put yourself on the list. You matter as well. There's nothing wrong with your children seeing that you also matter. They matter, they're part of the family, and you are part of the family too, and your things matter as well. So it's habits with discipline, and motivation's going to come and go. So I thought that was a great thing you brought up there, Nicole. Dieting mindset, going into something we probably haven't chatted about a lot from my memory, but do you still have dieting mindset? You still have some things that you've come to you in your, like, from the old days of dieting, or have you feel like you've moved on from that? Because before surgery, you diet to lose weight. How has that been after surgery? How are you feeling with that now?
I don't think about that anymore, honestly. I know a lot of times, and I see this, it's people talk about resetting like their pouch and going on like all liquid diets. And I'm like, God, I don't want to do that ever again. What I eat, I enjoy eating. I enjoy food. I do. But I feel like I've changed my mindset to I'm going to eat because I'm going to eat, to I'm going to eat because I want to nourish my body and I want to give it the right things, right? So I think for me, really, it's about the portion control and making sure that I stick to those basics. So I'm going to have the protein, I'm going to have some of the carbs, I'm going to have the vegetables. I think one of the things I probably struggle the most right now is with vegetables still. I probably go more for the protein and the carbs, to be honest with you. But I think just now I'm at a point where I like just looking up different recipes and making sure that they fit what I'm supposed to be eating. One thing that has helped me a lot, and I worked on this with you, it's including my family in it, making sure that I'm not just cooking something for me and then I'm cooking another meal for everybody. It's, hey, this is what we're making. Let's make it fun. Sometimes I include the kids in making it, and it's a time that we enjoy, and it can make it so that you're not constantly thinking like about the food, right? You're thinking like this is an experience, but it's a healthier food choice for me. So no, not so much the diet mindset. I don't ever think like I'm going to go on a 2-week liquid diet and lose 10 pounds because I know that it'll come back. I try and always tell myself, just focus on building consistency. Like the weight is going to fluctuate. You may step on the scale. That's another thing we worked on, not stepping on the scale every single day, that scale is going to go up and down. So I think another thing that helps me is taking a lot of measurements. I measure myself at least once a month now, just to kind of see like where I'm at. And I think you have to build those things into where you're still sometimes insecure. Like, did I eat too much? Did I do the wrong thing? Did I have a dessert or a cookie that and it's trying to just, again, that positive talk, like talking positive to yourself and saying like, okay, no, take it back to the basics. And it's still okay to have those things. It's just the moderation, the portion control, the consistency.
No, I love that. And that's a great message is there, because it's a wonderful place to get to. And people listening that may have been, they're in their weight loss surgery journey and still very much in a dieting mindset, can often very much want to leave it. And that's good food, bad food, and really struggle with balance. And bariatric surgery is not about being on a diet for the rest of your life. It's about living well, health, finding balance, enjoying your food, but in moderation. And if you've come from years and years and years of dieting, it can take time. And I'm not necessarily saying this to you, Nicole, I'm saying this to the listeners. It can take time, often take quite a bit of time and work to break that thinking and to break the dieting mindset. It really depends on how entrenched. Many people can start dieting from being children or placed on diets by their parents. It's not a surprise, that's deeply ingrained. So it's wonderful to get to that balance. It's wonderful to get to that maintenance stage and really feel relaxed. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I have loved our chat today. If there's anything that you would like to share, any advice that you would share, if somebody's listening and they are going to have surgery, or they're in the early days and you're further down the track than those early days, any advice that you give anyone?
I would say that if you're making the right choice, I think investing in yourself is always going to be the right choice. And I think especially having someone to coach you, like you coached me and you coach hundreds of other people, is so important because it's a unique situation. Even though it's in our world now, it's more common because you meet more people that have had bariatric surgery. Not all dietitians are versed or have the experience dealing with bariatric patients. So I think it is so important to find the right coach, find the right resources, the right support group to make sure that you can stay on track. It's difficult. Those first couple days are difficult. Those first couple of weeks are difficult, but it gets better. And if you have someone there to support you during that beginning stage, I think that was probably the best thing that I could have done for myself, was calling you. And even though you're like, let's wait till you're 4 days out, I'm like, are you sure? But we waited a little bit. I think maybe a week or two. I'm not sure. But
I think I wanted you to get home. Meaning, like, it's great, like, thanks for contacting me. But yeah, like, just get the steps in, listen to the advice of your hospital, get some fluid in, get home. So, but no, that's like,
no, let's start right now, Jane. No, I think sometimes we get to the point that we get to because there is no early intervention. A lot of times we don't address the problem till it's too far gone almost, right? Where we're already on the medication, we're already on having the health issues present themselves. So I think really just be committed. You're having the surgery, you're in the preparation stages, just making sure you're doing the research and finding somebody that aligns with listening to the podcast. Sometimes I go on walks and on runs and I listen to your podcast and just remind myself, listen to the stories, remember your why. And I think it really helps you to just center yourself, because you're going to have those moments where you want to deviate, where you're like, this is difficult. I don't want to keep doing this. But it's really just centering yourself. And again, thinking about your why and going back to those basics that you talk about. And I think that really has helped me out. And it's something that I feel like will continue to help me going forward for a long time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today. That was lovely chatting with you. It's been great hearing your words of advice and sharing your experience, because as I said in the beginning, I know people really get a lot of value out of listening to other people's journey. Not only do you learn, but you also get that connection where you're not alone and it is not easy, and that other people are going through it as well. And I think that's really important, because often if people do get to points of struggle after their weight loss surgery, people can feel very alone, especially if they can't access good support. They can feel very isolated. So thank you so much for your time. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate your support. And I'm getting lovely comments and feedback from my podcast, which is really lovely, because I essentially sit here and often just talking to myself, well, not talking to myself, but if I'm doing a solo episode. So it's lovely to get feedback. So if you would like to give me a review or subscribe to my podcast, that would be wonderful. I really appreciate your support, and I look forward to being back in your ears next week. And thank you so much, Nicole. Bye for now.